Oh, BigTuck can't open it. I guess it's just a builds episode.
Oh my god. There it is.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 41 of CMDTower's Brews and Builds. I'm Mr. Comment Number 5, and my fellow host is the chairman of the Elspeth fan club, BigTuck.
Ooh.
What's going on?
What a promotion.
Hello, warriors and warrioresses in that case. Or soldiers and soldieresses. I don't know. Hey, how we doing, Mr. Combo?
Hey, I'm doing okay other than that botched opening. BigTuck was bragging about this beer, and he has this growler can holder thing.
But let me tell you, it is worth it. Coming out of Transport Brewing right here in Shawnee, Kansas, it is a delicious treat. So, I was going to say, I was very excited because yesterday I left my house and visited not one, but 2 locations that weren't a grocery store or my parents' house. My father and I...
How'd it feel?
It felt great. My father and I went to the range and fired off some lead, and then we went to this brewery right afterwards, and I was like, wow, so this is what, like, human... I also saw a pretty funny meme where it was, like, people handshaking, and it was, like, a black and white photo, and it's like, this was a common used greeting to show I respect you or hello before 2019. So yeah, all that's getting a little long in the tooth though. So just glad to be, at least going out a little bit more here.
Well, there you go. Ooh. Yeah, I haven't done the venturing out yet. I know myself and a friend of the cast, Will, Marketing Ross, and a few of us have kind of started to kick around, maybe going to the lake this summer. Because we're kind of at the point, like, it's either you have two sides of the coin. You social distance until there's a vaccine.
Yeah.
Or you just try to be smart about it and try to live some semblance of your life. Like, for example, with us recording, this is very easy for us to record. Plus, sometimes I don't have to put on pants.
I'm not gonna lie. This has actually been easier at points because you can have I have multiple screens up, so I can it's a little easier to bounce back and forth. Plus, again, I'm lazy and I can drink 5 beers here and not have to worry about leaving the producer Squeeze house. So,
but yeah, I think it's like where there's events that you can do remote. Like even me for work, I don't think I'm ever going to go see a customer probably until the vaccine's done, unless that's just absolutely I have to do it. But for other stuff, it's like, well, I would like to see my friends, so let's have a game night.
And
it's kind of like, and Will brought up, like, do it like our last hurrah, where it's like, hey, just sanitize.
No no touching. If you feel, and I think a lot of it is too, where it's like personally, my social circle is very small when it comes to people who may be at risk. Right. Sure. In terms of my grandparents live in Florida and my parents are both very healthy and my brother and sister-in-law are super healthy too, and all that stuff, which is pretty much who I see. So I think it's also like on the person, if they're like, I go and see my grandparents every weekend and I've been helping them through this,
don't be going out.
That's more on you. But I think it's like if we have a group of people who they can contain themselves, I think it's probably okay. But who knows this crazy mixed up world?
This is not the CDC podcast. This is Brews and Builds. So thanks for tuning in. And this was only able to happen from our audio producer, Squee, and his production company, Rich Chaos Records, here in Kansas City. What's going on, Squee?
What's up, gentlemen? No, I'm having a pretty good day. I guess a pretty good week, actually. I don't know. I did venture out a little bit and made it out there into the world. It was all right. Granted, we're in the middle of the country, so people aren't really coming here. But
sure.
I'm having a pretty good week. I'm excited to dive into this. I guess we could just call it a build since we had so much trouble with the intro on the.
Look, I got it. Okay, look, let's all take a deep breath. Okay, I got it open. It was covered in condensation. My hands are weak for some reason. Look, we're rolling this way out of proportions here.
We came into this with a lofty goal of opening 2 beers at the same time, and here we are.
Well, if you guys want to know more ways to support the CMD Tower team and all the content we produce, head over to our sponsor, level1gameshop.com. They sell magic accessories like the sweet exclusive CMDTower playmat and Mat Hunter Pack sleeves, and they also do have a great TCG player store with a 99% accuracy rating and very competitive prices. Also, another way to support us, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMDTower. We have 4 different pledge levels, and rewards vary from getting early access to Brews and Bill's YouTube series to even getting your own set of CMDTower playmat and sleeves. And of course, if you can't help us financially, just the free ways, just share the content, subscribe to us, follow us, send us like those little nasty chalk mints that our grandmas used to have back in the 90s.
Oh, those are terrible. That are like wrapped up. Yeah, those are terrible.
The little heart-shaped ones with the messages on them?
No, like the ones that were just like in a bowl, and they were all like pastel.
Yeah,
They
they're
had
not
like the
wrapped.
peppermint stripe, but
those
when
do.
you bit it, it turned into dust.
That is just chalk. I'm convinced.
And of course, every episode we want to give a big shout out to Peak Royal for the music they provide in the intro and the outro. And of course, stay tuned till the end so you can get details on how you could win a Mystery C20 deck, playmat, and sleeves from level 1. So Brews and Builds is our deck tech series, and it's all about the decks that BigTuck, our guests, and myself have in our Path to 32. Each podcast, we're going to talk about one of our Path to 32 decks, but hey, in a cool manner of brewing bears.
Brewing bears.
So we broke it down into 4 different categories. The first one's going to be rampant setting your board state. That's the grain bill.
Yes, and grains are the foundations of any beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, usually in about a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, as made mentioned previously by people that we played with online, yes, the most important part, the alcohol content of the beer. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp into your bigger threats, and just like a grain profile, they're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
And then the next one's going to be how does your board interact with all of your opponents? That's a hop profile.
Yes, and hops are the flowers that actually give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal and floral flavors. They grow in a variety of strands and help distinguish subcategories like IPA. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can do what it wants.
And then the next one's going to be how does your deck actually either A, accomplish its goal, or B, win the game? We're correlating that to a yeast.
Yes, and yeast are actual living microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. It adds the alcohol content and the carbonation. Without yeast, you'd be drinking flat sugar water, and without yeast cards, your deck wouldn't meet the goal of actually winning the game.
Or if during the quarantine, you might correlate yeast to what you put in to bake your bread, since everyone's apparently doing
what
that.
What is with that? I don't get it. It's not like
It's the trendy thing to do.
It doesn't seem like a fun hobby to me, but what do I know?
You know what the weird trendy thing is? I saw someone milk a cucumber today.
What?
Excuse me,
Weird.
what?
Then we have shenanigans. These can be
You can't
pet
just
cards
run
or
by that like
cheese.
that.
He can and he will.
In the deck that are just fun, we're calling that a spice package.
Yes, and not every beer has them, but spices and additives help separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a stout into a jalapeno stout, or the addition of lemon and orange peel that turns this Midwest IPA into a citrus IPA. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, this is where we generally talk about it.
And then to seal the deal on the episode, we have a bottle capping, and these are going to be BigTuck's, our guests, and my recommendations to the deck that are under $5, under 50, and a personal recommendation that actually has no budget. The only restriction is no mana-only lands. Sorry, Tice, no Gaia's Cradle. So, without further ado, let's get brewing. Today,
Before that, you owe a drink, sir. You made mention of a friend of the show, Tice. Drink up.
Tice there.
All right, let me drink my empty tea.
Ooh, good effects.
So today we're talking Star Magic, Unesh's Riddle. BigTuck, what is up with this?
Well, we've talked about going through. I think something that's been really fun actually has been going through and comparing decks that are different from each other from colors we've already done. So this is my blue deck, and to start off with, Mr. Combo, I have a bit of a riddle for you. So let's see if you can piece this one out. I know you're not.
I'm probably just. If this riddle is either life or death at the end, I'm just going to say I'm going to die.
Okay.
Can I just choose Death's Door?
Yeah. Well, I think I know you're not much of a riddle smith, so you might be able to figure this one out. Okay. So, what do an old Flemish woman, a field mouse, whips, chains, whistles, yo-yos, and my uncle riding by on a bicycle give me the finger have in common?
Those are all characters that appeared in Family Guy.
Milking a cucumber?
Maybe, I don't know. But do you know what the answer is?
Absolutely not.
Damn it. Well, I mean, that wasn't my dream. That was my dream last night, so I was hoping you could kind of help me out. But what were we talking? Oh, Sphinxes. That's right. Okay, yeah. So we're talking about Sphinxes and the riddles today. So this is my.
We're just gonna gloss over the riddles.
This is my Mono Blue Sphinx deck. And for those playing the home game, that was indeed a bit that I thought of in the shower this afternoon. So I'm pretty proud of that. So my mono blue deck is led by Unesh, Cryo Sphinx Sovereign. So when this card got spoiled, it was kind of like Mr. Combo with his Snaky Snake deck. I was like, I'm immediately going to build this one. This is going to be my blue deck. He is a big boy, and there are many big boys in CMC in this deck. 4 colorless blue for 4/4 flyer, legendary creature Sphinx. Sphinx spells cost 2 less to cast, and then there's a wall of text that, since I didn't bring my glasses, I'm going to go ahead and have Mr. Combo read.
And
Sure.
take a drink, please.
There we go.
So whenever Unesh, the Cryo Sphinx Sovereign, or another Sphinx ETBs under your control, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand, the other into the yard.
So one of my favorite cards that's ever been printed is Fact or Fiction. If you remember that, which pretty much does this thing, but it's 5, and I think it's an instant. So I just think it's a really fun mechanic. I also think that Sphinxes are kind of weird cards in Commander. They're all like kind of almost good enough to play sometimes, right? They're really good. They're really good in Limited. Most of these Sphinxes have wrecked in Limited before or in Draft. So I kind of like the fact that we're building against type. We're building what could be a blue beatdown deck. The first couple times I played this, actually, I was like, I'm just gonna make a bunch of Sphinxes. I had like all of like the coat of arms effects and all that stuff. Realized that didn't work because I didn't intend to do this. I got down to 9 cards in my deck. I was like, oh, so I'm just gonna die if I don't figure this out next turn. So I've kind of turned it into a little bit of like self-mill with some strategies that go into that. The one thing that is kind of tricky with this deck, it is a very top-down kind of deck. You really need your commander to get going. And there's a lot of different ways to go. I've had this deck for a long time. It's one of the ones I like playing the most. I haven't really touched it much besides a few cards here and there. I don't know. I think if you're trying to do something different in blue, that's not just, Brawl or Talrand or something like that, this is a good out. The funniest thing I've seen with Unesh is that he actually fits into like Shapeshifter Tribal, because it makes them cost less as one of the 99, not as a commander. They cost less, and then when you cast your Morphons or whatever, they come in and get that ability too. But just a little bit there. So, Mr. Combo, we were talking before, and you said you've never seen this one IRL,
I mean, here's the thing. You and I, we've played so many games of EDH.
You're telling me you don't remember each individual one specifically? I thought we were friends.
I know, it's crazy. And usually and it's crazy. I seem to only remember the ones that I win.
Big surprise.
That's selective memory.
So I may have seen this. I would love to see it this weekend. Perhaps. But looking at it, initially it took me a little bit digging through the cards to figure out what you were trying to do.
For sure.
And we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think the biggest challenge I see with this deck, and I would love your 30-second highlight on how you kind of deal with it, is blue has ways to kind of ramp, but it's not like ramp in the traditional sense. And like you said, like I'm looking over here.
Oh yeah,
CMC 5. You got 7 cards. 5 cards. You got 6 cards in the 6th slot. You got 7 cards in the 7th slot, and you have an 11, which I know isn't really an 11.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, you got like almost 23, 25 cards that are CMC 5 or greater. How do you deal with that in this deck?
And there is, the curve is 388, which is very high. And again, when I first built this, none of that, I didn't care about any of that stuff, right? Like I didn't look at any of that. I was just like, okay, this works. Mostly, I think that the cards that are in that lower slot, like 0 through 3, pretty much fall into like 1 or 3 categories, where it's either removal, a counterspell, or ramp. So or draw. There's a lot of draw just to get in low cost, just to kind of filter through your deck. So I've never really had problems drawing my lands, getting there. And there's been times really where I've had like more mana than I know what to do with. If I can be honest, like get a monster high tide, flash it back. Another one thing that's really good. Darn it! We talked about this in our what's that? The Theros. There is a gazillion blue pips in this deck. So that one card I need desperately, and I'm not going to say it just in case we're talking about it later. Still haven't ordered them. I got to fix that. All right. Where we're going. So
yeah, you better hurry up before the price spikes keep happening.
I know. It's already back up to 5. Anyway, the point being is that it's very tempting in this deck, and this is a trap that I fell into a lot when I first started playing it, of like, ramp as fast as you can, get your commander out and pray, right? And really, it's a little bit more, the beginning of the deck is a little bit more tempo, right? Like, you're kind of trying to control the board, build up a state, get some Sphinxes in your hand, because ideally you want to cast your commander and then have something else to do with the discounted cost. It is kind of, it can get some weird tempo issues there, but I never really had a problem with it just due to the amount of ramp and color and draw stuff I have in it too.
Okay, that's fair. It's just because initially when I looked at it, what I was fearful of is you're going to get to that point where it's like, I could cast a Sphinx, but then I'm going to be tapped out. Yeah. Or I could pass my turn and have some counter control tempo type things, but then if no one does anything, I did nothing.
Yeah, and like usually if you can get, once you can get Unesh down, being able to get all those Sphinxes subtracted by 2, and especially if you throw in like an Urza's Incubator or maybe some other cards we'll get into at some point, you generally aren't paying the full cost for them. That's really if you're in like a pinch.
Okay. That's fair. Well, why don't we go ahead and dive into the Rampant Grain Bill. And BigTuck, what is your first card?
So my first card is shockingly not a Sphinx, but it is, I think, a blue staple, potentially standard, especially for a creature. So we are talking Archaeomancer. This card is so good. So 2 colorless, blue. When it enters, it's a 1/2 wizard, human wizard, does not matter at all. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So you will be burning counter spells, you will be burning draw spells. A lot of the times, if you get a good rip, because sometimes when you get this deck going, I'm doing that mini factor fiction like 2-3 times a turn, and your graveyard just starts to pile up. So being able to have something that can enter the battlefield and go get you something immediately, it's kind of sucks that it's instant or sorcery, but again, this isn't green, so you're kind of lackluster on that. I also have something else. I have a really fun tech that I got to do for like 4 turns in a row that we'll get into when we get to the hops profile, but this card has done a lot of work for me. It's a blocker. It can kind of get you that draw if you need it early to get the blocker out there. I've gotten back a brainstorm with this and been like, okay, let's go spin the wheel again. So it's just kind of a great utility player. It's nothing flashy, but I really, really like this card in a lot of decks that care about casting spells.
Yeah, I think it's one of those to where I don't run it in my mono blue deck, even though our hop sections, I will say generically, are kind of similar.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's just blue. I won't spoil the whatever already knows. But, I think it's one of those cards to where you kind of have to decide, am I just using this to maybe get back a counter spell? Or am I actually using this to get back potentially other tech that's in my deck? And so I've never been able to find a home for Archaeomancer. I even took him, I think, out of my Yarok
deck. Sure.
I'm not 100% positive. It could be in there. Brews and Builds episode, whatever the hell it was. But yeah, I think for your deck, seeing how many instant and sorcery cards you have, like if I actually sort it from Arnon factor, you got 23. Right. So the fact that one card can potentially get back 25% of your deck from the graveyard, you should have it in there.
And it also helps too, because sometimes if you get a split where it's like a Rift and another card that you kind of want, and 2 Sphinxes that are going to help keep this train rolling, you're like, this makes it a lot easier because you're like, okay, I have the Archaeomancer in my hand, I can get the Rift back, don't have to worry about that as well, because that will happen. Like, part of the fun of the deck is you have to choose an opponent to do it, right? So if you're crafty, you can find someone that's in a bind. You're like, if you give me all 4 of these, I'll help you. And then if they're smart, they should say, go to hell. But, sometimes you can sneak them in. So just wanted to talk about Archaeomancer. I think it's a great card in this deck.
Cool. Well, my first one is a card that I actually have a weird affinity for it. Ooh. You don't see it played a lot. I think I run it maybe I'm trying to think. It may still be in my Animar deck for some reason.
Okay.
Because once again, when I built my Animar deck, it wasn't like a tuned Animar deck. It was like, I got this teamer stuff, and I have a random infinite combo. But we're talking about Arbiter of the Ideal.
Oh, sure, yeah.
4 colorless blue Sphinx flying. It's a 4/5. But the reason I like it is it has a cool mechanic from the old Theros block called Inspired. When Arbiter of the Ideal becomes untapped, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an artifact, creature, or land, you may put it onto the battlefield with a manifestation counter on it. That permanent is an enchantment in addition to its other types.
Yeah.
I love that because then it's just you're getting free stuff.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I don't see a ton of ways to kind of manipulate the top in your deck, but you know, this is a card that if you have like a scroll rack.
Yeah.
If you have Sensation Top, if you have that kind of stuff, you can kind of arrange it to be whatever bomb you want. I love this card, and I like the fact that it does fit the theme of your deck.
Sure.
Of you do want to do blue big beats, and you can't get this effect unless it's tapped, and then it has an untap ability.
Yeah.
So, what have you seen this do some work with you and flip off some good stuff?
I have, and again, most of the creatures in decks are Sphinxes as well. So a lot of times I've swung in for the red zone for some damage. It untaps. I flip over. I get my first Sphinx out. Get that train going right immediately when Unesh is out. I haven't gotten that much with it just because I don't get to play this deck that much, unfortunately.
Sure.
But I'm working on new ways of getting around that. But I agree, right? It's a little overcosted if you think about it for 6, but for 5 for 4, it's phenomenal. So
sure,
I have a lot of my utility cards in here are artifacts that are really good. Fair amount of win cons, fair amount of these cards are in there as well. And the fact that this can get those, and if you get a land, so be it. You know what I mean?
And the cool thing is that unlike other effects that usually do this, if it's not one of those 3 conditions, it just stays on top.
Yes.
All you did was reveal what it is to your opponents, which you're going to do anyways, because you're going to do your mini factor fiction when you have a Sphinx enter the battlefield. So really for you, it's a win-win.
Yes, totally agreed on board. One of the better Sphinxer cards in the deck, in my opinion.
Well, what's your next grain card?
So I did talk a lot about how this deck does kind of hinge on artifacts, and you talked about how we don't have a lot of ramp in here either, or blue doesn't traditionally. So this is a card that I think is absolutely incredible, and it's spiked in price since I last saw it. So we are talking Fabricate. Two colorless and a blue. Search a library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. This used to be like $2. Now it's $6, and
it's a combo piece.
Absolutely. And on top of that, thank you to Mr. Tice again. Here we are, because I think I pulled 10 of these out of those boxes he gave me.
10?
Wow.
I have a stack like that much of ones I haven't traded to Aaron yet. So
you didn't want to go on a giving away spree of those too?
I didn't know they were that good. So, or that expensive, moreover, because I don't want to get in Triumph of the Horde. I'm out. So anyway, like I said, this is a great utility in this deck for a lot of reasons, and one of the reasons why I really like it is it's never a dead draw. So if you get it early, I usually go get a ramp spell, right, a Soul Ring or whatever utility that I need there. If it's later game, this can go get some of my win cons potentially. And I was looking at this earlier, and we're not going to talk about because it's a land. I have a Seat of the Synod in here, which is an artifact land, and I was like, why did I have this in here? Because it could just get blown up for a Vandal Blast. And I was like, oh yeah, Fabricate. So I can like bad Sylvan Scrying if I really need to in a pinch. So it's just a really good card overall. I think this goes into a lot of mono blue decks. Just being able to go tutor up an artifact is so good. So what do you think about Fabricate? I think I've seen you play this once or twice, right?
Ooh, I don't think so.
No, okay.
I do generic, better black tutors.
Sure.
But I think this really ties in well to our MTG Action 4 news that came out this week, to where Fabricate's in 10% of all decks that can run blue.
Compared to some of the ones we talked about, that's like astronomically huge.
But here's the thing: is I'm actually of the mindset I think Fabricate's one of those cards that should be in 30 to 40% of decks, because think about it. at least 4 out of 10 EDH decks has like a chromatic lantern.
Yes.
You're going to have other good artifacts. It could be equipment based.
Yeah.
There's always, like you said, it's not a dead draw. It's a lot like Bribery, which is one of our, what we said, underplayed cards. Bribery's never a dead draw.
Right.
Just like Fabricate's never a dead draw. So I 100% agree. I think it's a great include in here because, like you said, it's not dead. Beginning, middle, and end, it's always going to have a target.
Yes, I agree. So want to talk it out there. I will be talking about a Sphinx next, so don't worry about it.
All right. Well, my next one is a pretty boring card, but we actually talked about, I want to say, was it the white version? Oh, man, it might have been the red version, or it could have been this one. I don't remember because we do so many episodes. But we're going to talk about, I think, a criminally underplayed card, Sky Diamond.
Yeah, sure.
So 2 colorless artifact, Sky Diamond ETB's tapped, and then it taps for a blue.
Easy enough.
Very simple, very straightforward. You could almost say it's kind of like a bad talisman, or not talisman, a bad signet. But
topical.
I don't know. I think these diamond, the Sky Diamond, that kind of set, like it's only in 4% of decks that run blue, and I think that's just criminally underplayed. I would rather have this than a signet, probably.
You think so? Just because it's consistent?
Yeah, and you always have to be able to pay in, and you're stuck with like the one or the other, and it's like, gosh, but I actually needed like. I got a blue in this, but I actually needed 2 blue, and I can't get that.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna have those weird circumstances where I think a lot of Magic cards now have the double pips.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that whole set is just, and it's only at like $1.50.
Yeah,
it's not like it's an expensive card.
And as they mentioned earlier, like some people will say, well, you could also run Prismatic Lens, that's a 2 mana, or Mind Stone, which I think I have, right? But the trick there is, like you said, Unesh and the other things, they only cut down the colorless mana spent on it, right? And I almost said a lot of these dragons, a lot of these Sphinxes have 2-3 pips, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just being able to consistently, you need those pips. Gotta get those pips. Call up a children's story because you're gonna call this deck Pippi Longstockings. Ooh. Don't like that. bad way to end that bit.
All right, well, BigTuck, what is your last grain? So you said you're talking about a Sphinx.
I am.
Can they see into the future?
I'm not sure if that narrows it down, but this one, I will say this one can potentially at a very strange time of the game.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, there it is. Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Sphinx of Foresight. Yeah! Woo! Oh.
I'm glad we avoided the glare of Subdual and Aura Shards debacle of 2020.
Oh, that was amazing.
We're past that. Also, if you're real immature, like so many people who are on and listen to this podcast, you could probably refer to this as Sphinx of Foreskin. We're gonna move right past that. Let's go. So, I'll read the base stats, and you can read the fun stuff in it. How about that?
All right.
So Sphinx of Foresight, 2 colorless, 2 blue for 4/4 creature Sphinx that has flying.
It says you may reveal this card from your opening hand if you do scry 3 at the beginning of your first upkeep. It has flying, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. I do not understand the future I see. The guild subverted the world at war. Armies bent to a cruel conqueror's will.
That guy does.
And I don't know who said that.
I don't know. He does. You can see he's got a human face. Sphinxes are all weird. Like half of them have human faces, half of them don't. It's very confusing.
Your commander has this weird goat head.
He's the goat, dude. He's got the goat. He's not the yoked goat though, but he's still pretty big boy. No, I like so.
But yeah, no. This card has the upside. Ceiling.
Totally.
The downside is it's still a 4 for 4 with an upkeep ability and flying.
And that's like worst case. But again, like once we get the Sphinx train rolling, you need all these lower costed cards because like paying 2 blue to get this Fact of Fiction, go on with your life. Then you also have a latent ability on it. There's a lot of these cards that I put in here, Sphinx wise. I think there's a couple more that are lower CMC that we didn't get into. Those kind of serve 2 utility in here. One is they help the Sphinx engine train go a little faster, right? And then second is they are 4/4 blockers that you can get in for a lower cost than 8 or whatever that huge topside is. So ideally you want to pay 2 for this, but again, a 4/4 flyer with an ability helps smooth out your draws, helps you do a little bit of that top deck manipulation like we were talking about that I don't have that much in here. no downside to this. I have yet to get the reveal from the opening hand, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think I've ever seen this card played. So
now that we're done with the grain, you do have a ley line of anticipation.
Yeah.
Have you gotten ley line at least in your opening hand?
I have.
Okay.
I don't know if it's. I think,
at least you're getting one of the payoffs.
I think I've done it in this deck. But I know I've done ley line multiple times. And one note card I've never been able to play before the game even starts. Bill Duncan Orrery. So that card is trash and not worth the money.
Well, with that being said, we're going to close out the grain bill and now head over to the hot profile. I'll kick this one off with a card that, once again, had a set. I bought the set in foil for my God deck, realized it's trash and it doesn't work. But in this deck, I think it does do some work. So it's a card, though, that we love to talk about on Brews and Builds about modality in the card. This could be a grain or a hop. We're talking about Kefnit's Monument.
Damn it! I was going to say that's what I was going to say. That's mine, too.
Wait, is that yours, too?
Yeah, you didn't even let me guess.
I was going to say that's what I was going to say.
Well, you know what? Just because I ruined it for you, BigTuck, I'll read its base stats and you read its flavor text.
Damn it. You're making me strain.
Kefnit's Monument. It's a 3 colorless legendary artifact.
Weird legendary artifact that an uncommon. Blue creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step.
There is flavor text.
Okay, here we are. The worthy shall cultivate a nimble mind to perceive to perceive the glorious wonders that await them. And then that's quoted to the monument itself. So, it's the good stuff. Yeah,
the struggle is real out there with the eyes.
Dude, just every day. So I've been thinking about it. I think these monument cards are kind of underplayed, to be honest. And especially the mana reduction in this. I think most of them have good abilities. I think
the white one you make tokens.
Yeah, the white one you make tokens. The red one you draw and discard cards. The green one gives trample, which is fine. And then the black one
drains for life.
Yeah, the black one drains, and the blue one does this. So the only thing I wish this would do is that you could tap a creature, right? So that kind of stinks that that it just doesn't untap, but you can lock down Birds of Paradise. If someone's swinging in with their Voltron commander that doesn't have the vigilance, or they have no way to untap it, it's a good way to lock that piece down. But I think really the reason why this is in here is for that reduction in cost, right? It makes your Sphinxes reduce 1. It makes your Rift or whatever the case may be there cost 1 less, and it's a quarter. So I really think that I personally feel that these monuments all have a home in most monocolor decks that fit.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing. I actually don't mind the whole doesn't untap during the next untap step, because here's how I kind of look at this card. Either A, someone swung in for big damage, and you kind of freeze out that one creature. But sort of thinking about it this way, especially with our play group, since no one does anything, it's a lot of, hey, you're in step, let me tap and do this stuff. So what you do is, you got Selvala out, I'm going to target that. Do you really want to parlay before your turn? You're just going to get it that one time.
Yes, queen.
So you can kind of start being a little politicky with the people that want to react, opposed to, because the cool thing is it's a cast trigger, so it's going to be sitting there on the stack. They're going to respond. Right. And it doesn't matter if they do it before you hit it with it, it's still going to impact them. So you get the win-win no matter what. Sometimes it's like, I can react before you do it and then I'm safe. But that's where I kind of look at this, to where you do this weird little politic game. The only thing I wish is it wasn't on cast.
Yeah.
I wish it was ETB.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then this is also, if you really want to get into it, you can be like, hey, I'll tap down your monster for this turn and until you get rid of this, because I'm going to keep doing this casting creatures. So why don't you give me pile of 3 and a pile of 1 instead of a pile of 2 and 2?
And then they tell you to go to hell.
Yes, exactly. So,
well, no, sorry. I tell you that.
Right.
Everyone else is like, whatever you say.
What else you got? Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, what is your second hop card.
I was gonna say Familiar's Ruse. So 2 blue for an instant. As an additional cost to cast Familiar's Ruse, return a creature you control to its owner's hand, counter target spell. So again, the thing I like about this is twofold. One, I put a soft lock on the game by returning Archaeomancer to my hand. So I was like,
oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, you can cast whatever you want, but one of them's not getting through, and next turn I'm just gonna do the same thing. So that was actually helpful. So I guess I could like build my board. But the other thing I like about it too is there has been times where I run out of gas on Sphinxes, right? I get some bad flips. I just kind of get stalled there, and the ability to bounce a Sphinx back to my hand and then cast again next turn, get that cycle going, just has a lot of utility there. So we talked a lot about how if you're playing, we talked a lot about how like counterspell in blue is good, right? It kind of starts losing its luster once you get past 2-3 colors. There's other counterspells that are costed differently that make it a little easier. Sure. But in mono blue, for me, in this deck in particular, this just slots in as a second counterspell. Right? There's a lot of things that can bounce back and forth. And I just don't see that it doesn't, in this deck in particular, it doesn't have a lot of downside. I will say that is not the case for all mono blue decks.
Yeah, I mean, heck, I would even consider running this in a Yarok deck.
Sure, yeah.
Because you want to bounce a creature to be able to play it
Absolutely.
again. I think this one actually probably has more homes than Negate does.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And instead of the counter non-creature condition, now it's just, once again, a generic counter spell, but you return a creature to your hand, and you're always going to have something out there.
And it could.
So yeah, I really like that.
And to your point, if you're playing something where like your commander gets locked down with Darksteel Mutation or something like that, you're like, okay, fair enough. Like I'll bring that right back. So maybe I'm too hard on it, but for 38 cents. I think it's better than Negate. I completely agree with you with that. And this deck, though, it really does some wonders.
Awesome. Well, my second one is also a counter spell.
Yeah.
One that I find very interesting because it can be free. So we're talking about Thwart.
Yeah.
2 colorless, blue, counter target spell. But it does have a condition similar to Force of Will, Force of Negation. You may return 3 islands you control to their owner's hands instead of paying Thwart's mana cost. Anytime you can have a conditional free counterspell, amazing card. And you know what? The bouncing 3 islands you would think would kind of suck, but you got to think about it. Early game, if it's just someone's going to combo out, who cares? Yeah. It's not like you're in ultra ramp and have a land tax. You're always going to be filled with lands. So you know what? Oh, I haven't gotten a land in a few turns. These will just now be my land drops.
Now I have the next 3 turns lined up.
Yep. Or you kind of look at it from the second perspective that, man, late game, you're tapped out, you're dominating the board, and it's, hey, Psych Rift at your instep, and it's like, you know what? I'll put those 3 lands back, save all my Sphinxes, and at that point, your commander's reducing stuff by 2. Yep. You have your other mana reductions out, you have mana rocks out, so the returning 3 islands really isn't that much of a negative impact.
I completely agree, and like you said, I think this card would suck a lot more if it cost like 5 diesel, but four for a counterspell is like bad, but it's not atrocious. It's bad, right? But
it's in 0% of decks on EDH. 588. 588 decks.
Upgrade it to atrocious.
Okay, there has to be. This won't make sense. Well, actually, it will, because this is happening in the future. I've also been reading this book that's all about time, so my brain's really been scrambled with this stuff. But yeah, like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's a free counterspell, right? And it's 78 cents. Like, yes, I agree with you. Like, the forces are better. There's other ones out there that, do similar, but maybe less restrictive. But again, you're not like most blue decks, especially mono blue decks, like they don't really care about their mana because they got all this other ideas of what they're trying to do, right? Why not?
And the crazy thing is Familiar's Ruse is in 5 times more decks than Thwart.
So is it in like 5%?
1% of all decks. 2,500 decks.
Wow. All right. Thwart is awesome. It's kind of a late edition. I think it's easy to cut if I ever stumble upon a Force of Negation or that new one, because it is commander centric. But for 75 cents, easy pickup.
Well, what is your last hop?
So I honestly can't remember if we've talked about this in the past, but this is, in my opinion, is the best blue creature removal spell that's ever been printed. So we are talking Reality Shift. This card is freaking bonkers. So colorless and a blue for an instant, exile target creature. Its controller manifests the top card of their library. And the big difference between manifest and morph is that if this is a non-creature spell, it's just a 2/2 creature.
Yep.
Unconditional removal. It's exile, so it's gone from the game. And then there's like the 1% Magic Christmas land for your opponents, where you cast this and they're like, oh, thank God, my Avacyn flip, and then you're just like, well,
sure,
I guess I'm screwed. But just the fact that it's 2 colorless removal, it's 75 cents. Just does work. Like, blue really, really struggles with permanent removal. That's why I have some not so hot things in here that just destroy permanents or bounce them, just because I have been stymied by other artifacts or something that I can't do anything with. People would say like rapid hybridization and Pongify is a colorless, is only 1 blue, but they also get a creature out of it, and it's destroy. This is just flat exile for 2.
Yeah, so the way I kind of look at this card is, once again, a little bit more of a unique take. A lot of tutors in EDH, think if you're mystical, you're enlightened, you're vampiric, a lot of it's to top a library.
Oh.
So the kind of cool thing about this is, sure, vampiric, you don't get to see what they do, but in the mystical standpoint, or even the enlightened, most of the time they're not getting a creature, because it doesn't fit the right type. I mean, I guess enlightened, it could be an artifact creature or enchanted creature.
But like, let's be honest here, it's not, right?
It never is. And so I kind of look at Reality Shift. Yes, in a pinch, you can exile a very troublesome creature that's about to kill you. But I also look at it from the other side of the glass, to where, you know what? They just tutored, and they're possibly going to win with what's on top of their library. They don't have a draw engine, and yeah, they do have a creature. I'll exile it. Let's make whatever you tutored for a 2/2.
Right, totally. Like, oh, you just went and got that Darksteel Forge? Like, bad news for you, right? Like, that's going to run on the board.
Or, I mean, heck, Sensei's Divining Top. Oh, you rearrange the top, and now you're going to tap and try to draw? Exile.
Not anymore.
I don't want
totally
you to have
agree.
that.
So you're saying that...
I think it has a lot of cases.
You're saying that this is a hidden modular card, which makes me like it even more. So I think I really like Reality Shift. It's been one of my favorite removals. Premier removal in blue. Personally, I think it goes in every mono blue deck. If I'm going to be completely honest, I would call this a mono blue staple.
I'm ashamed to say I don't have it in a single deck.
Wow. It's only 75 cents, so
it's not expensive enough. It's not expensive enough.
all my removal has to be at least $5, or it's not making the cut. So, anyways, I know we didn't get Sphinxes there, but we will. So you have one more left for you too, don't you, Mr. Combo?
I do, and it's a Sphinx. So I feel like I'm carrying this workload. We're going to be talking about Guardian of Tzim.
Absolutely.
3 colorless blue creature Sphinx. 4/5, flying, and it has landfall. Whenever a land ETBs on the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. If that land is an island, which yours are going to be, that creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Love it. I mean, once again, you're not playing multiple lands per turn, but you top end, it's a 5, that's a 4/5 flyer with a relevant ability. Or the low end. Top end, you're basically paying probably 2 blue.
3 or like
or 3.
Yeah, 3 for a 4/5 flyer that has a super relevant ability. And to your point, okay, I'm going to thwart 3 islands back to my hand. I didn't have a land drop this turn, so now I'm going to lock you down. Next turn, I'm going to lock you down again. And so I think it pairs really nicely. Blue definitely has those abilities of being able to tap and keep them tapped, which is awesome. And the fact that it's stapled on a relevant creature makes this card go crazy.
And we just talked about Kefnet's Monument. That makes it to where the creature can't untap during its next untap step, because you do have, 8? 9. You have like 9 or 10 other non-island cards. So you got 12. 12 non-islands in the deck. So you know what? It could be a rigmarole that you cast, him. It triggers Kefnet's Monument. You tap down something. or you say the next time you would untap, you can't, and then you play a terrain generator, and then boom, now it's not going to untap because you got kind of like this double thing. So I really like it. I think it's an interesting card, and being a 4/5, it may not get like the most damage in the red zone. It could be kind of hanging back to block. But I think it's actually one of the cards that would probably draw salt at the table to make people want to remove this instead of the actual other problems.
Totally agree. So yeah, I have played this before. I played it for 3 and it just wrecked. It was like hit my land every turn, and it got to the point where people would give me like the splits would be the one they would give me like intentionally bad splits trying to get me not to take a land on like the Sphinx end of the battlefield. So yeah, it does work, man.
Cool. Well, that's going to wrap up the hot profile. Now we're going to head over to how this deck closes out in Yeast. BigTuck, what's the first card you want to talk about?
So, in my opinion, ever so humble, this is my favorite and one of arguably, I think, the best Sphinxes in the deck.
Ooh.
So,
what is it?
It is Argent Sphinx.
Huh.
You don't like this one?
Nope.
You're an insane person. Okay. 2 colorless, 2 blue for a 4/3 flying creature Sphinx. Also, I've noticed we haven't talked about a single mythic, and I realize it's because there's literally 6. So let's get there. So that's fine. A 4/3 flyer for 4 is fine. Here's the big thing though. Metalcraft. Blue. Exile it. Return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more artifacts. As we talked about with Fabricate and all this other stuff, artifacts are very important to me. So for 1 blue, each turn, I get to mini Factor Fiction. Exactly what this deck wants to do. Bouncing it literally every turn, drawing cards, filling up your graveyard potentially if you're looking to do that, and kind of going through your deck, filtering. And you can do that in response to like block it. You can block something and then bounce it out. Tons of utility, just overall, and again, it's one of those Sphinxes that fits the bill because it usually will only cost 2 blue, so getting it out to begin with is going to be cheap enough. It's a pseudo mana sink when you need it, because again, sometimes I kind of run out of mana or I have like extra mana left over, not too often. Does exactly what this deck wants to do. As soon as this card got spoiled, this is one of the first card people talked about. I think I got it for like $4, and now it's 35 cents, so that kind of sucks. But anyways, Argent Sphinx for the win. And you don't like it because...
So, initially I didn't understand your whole Factor Fiction rigmarole, trying to do that all the time. I mean, it's fine. It's fine?
You're a madman.
Fine. I don't know. I just kind of look at this. The way you want to be doing is doing it during everyone's turn in step, or a second main phase.
Right.
But then that's spending 3 blue mana each rotation to do that, which can be great. But then your whole hop section becomes nullified because if you're spending big mana to cast a Sphinx, then you're only going to have, let's just say, 4 mana left over for the rotation. Then it's like, oh gosh, do I use it for counter spells or do I use it for free Factor Fictions? Like, which route do I go? And I'm not a fan.
But again, it's a choice. It gives you a modular. You just answered my question. It just gives you another. It gives you another losing a choice.
It comes full circle.
I love that modular stuff. So, anyways, Argent Sphinx for the win. So, what do you got first for the Easters?
So I got a card that I think is pretty cool. And it kind of goes into your possibly beat phase. And it's one that honestly I've never seen before.
Wait a minute.
Which shocks me.
Does this card cost 39 cents right now? Or, I'm sorry, $3.97?
Yep.
Oh, baby. Yeah, this is my last one. Perfect.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Obelisk of Earth.
I've never heard of this card.
Oh man, I saw this. This actually first started in my Perforos deck before it was Perforos and it was Krenko, because that was all about the pumps. But no, this card is awesome.
Yeah, I need to get a few of them for my deck. Like slivers, this would be amazing.
Or your freaking petitioners. Because we know how much those get in the red zone.
So this is 6 colorless, and it says, as Obelisk of Ur, ETBs, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +2/+2. So initially you're like, well, that doesn't sound very good. Well, here's the kicker. It has Convoke, so your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for a colorless or 1 mana of that creature's color. So yes, in theory, you're tapping big sphinxes to cast this for free,
Right.
which would be really bad.
I've resorted to that before. Let me tell you, it feels bad.
But we did talk earlier about an Arbiter of the Ideal that needs to get tapped.
Yes.
You could have a very locked down board, and it's like, you know what? I'll spend 5 and then tap the Arbiter of the Ideal so I get its inspired trigger to be able to get this Obelisk of Earth down. Very cool card. I don't know why you wouldn't run this in all
tribal decks. Yeah, it's really good. And especially because people have been like, if you're running tribal, put Coat of Arms in it because it costs 5. But like Coat of Arms is so like, the upside is big, but like the downside is also huge, right? Because like if you're playing against vampires or goblins or elves, Coat of Arms is a dead card. Because like I will never in this deck's existence be able to poop out as many sphinxes as any other go wide thing. Where this one is a little safer. I also like the fact that it's not like, I thought for a second this was you had to pay of the creature that you're naming, but then I realized that's not how Convoke works, and I think I was in some sort of horrible fever dream. But I do have, like your point, I also have cards like the Archaeomancer, another card that gets things back from the grave, Solemn Simulacrum, like some of these utility cards that kind of pay into this. And again, this has happened before where I have a glut of colorless mana, right, from all my artifacts or whatever that boils down to, and it's like, okay, perfect, I can just tap 2 creatures, tap out, and actually be able to do something this turn that turns it into a bit of a more flying threat. This is a weird card as well because it's really the only card I have in here that like boosts the creature attack strategy, and it's been really hard for me because I've happened so much where I've done the more mill stuff in one, I've done the more creature attack, like it's been right down the middle. So I've always wondered, it's like, is it worth throwing another card in here that kind of boosts my creatures?
Sure.
And maybe we'll get into that in the bottle capping. I'd love to hear it.
We definitely will. I can promise you that.
All right.
So well, what is your now?
This is my last one. Okay, so this is, I promised you Sphinxes, and I brought the biggins. He's the chonker. We're talking Sphinx of the Final Word. Yeah!
Tuska!
Yes! And finally we got there. It's a mythic. The old Bucks 37 mythic. So he is humongous. So 5 colorless, blue for a creature Sphinx. He is a 5/5 that cannot be countered. Mr. Combo, take it away.
He has flying and hexproof. Oh wait, we're not done. Instant and sorcery spells you control can't be countered by spells, and the important part, or abilities. Yes. I am huge because I'm a big fan of Grand Abolisher.
Yeah, it's
being able to, this is basically kind of that with instant sorceries. Yep. Oh man, so good.
And like we said, a lot of the stuff we have are counter spells. This is the last yeast, right?
For you.
Oh, you're out. Okay, damn it. So there's other cards in here that are very important cards to how this deck works, and having them
don't worry, I'm talking about it.
Having them undercounterable is really key. Being able to freely cast Cyclonic Rifts, being able to do capsize shenanigans. It's really good. The only thing I don't like about this card, and again, I've never cast this for 7. I think the most I've cast this for is 5. But like it does suck that it's only a 5/5 for 5, right? But or 5/5 for 7. But the fact that it can't be countered, it has hexproof and gives another ability. This can kind of be the nail in the coffin to help push through the rest of the damage and make sure that you have something that can block whatever you need to.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about how when you're paying 7+ mana, it should be like a game winner of sorts. Totally. I wouldn't say that this fits that.
Agreed.
But it's, like you said, you're probably the most you're going to pay for it is 5. Yeah. Would I pay 5 mana for a 5/5 and 3 relevant abilities?
Absolutely.
I absolutely would. And I think would I pay 7?
No. And there's been times where I've had this, and I'm like, I think there's been times where I literally had this in my opener. I'm like, okay, I'll play this game, and then by the time my commander's gotten killed for the 3rd time, I'm like, well. Maybe I should have mulliganed down. But I think, so it doesn't win you the game, but I think it does put you, I think it really does catapult you into a position where you're like, this is something that's going to be removed. Are you really going to attempt to use a board wipe on this, right? and then just get countered anyway. So yeah, Sphinx is the final word. He's a chonker, but he's one of my faves.
Well, and so I kind of lied. I'm not talking about temporal trespass or temporal mastery. Not talking about either of those, and I know that's what you're referring to. But I'm actually talking about a card that in my bottle capping, we're going to try to feed more into this. I want to feed more into your whole ETB. And if you're doing ETB things, you got to talk about the best big musical instrument,
Panharmonicon.
4 colorless artifact. If an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent, you control the trigger. The ability triggers an additional time. Amazing card. You're getting double mini factor fictions. You, like you said, you're going through your deck, and you have so many, and that's what I kind of had to like double check. Is you got a lot of like Sphinx of the Uthan enters the battlefield. You got so many guys. You know, your Argent Sphinx that you're white hot.
And even to your point, Guardian of Tazim, like a land entering the battlefield will cause that landfall to trigger twice. And if you have the monument down and then cast a creature, you get 2 monument triggers. Oh no, because that's not enter the battlefield. That's cast. Damn it, monument! Why do you gotta tease us so much?
But yeah, you have enough stuff in here to where you want to be doing ETB type things. And Panharmonicon just really... I mean, heck, your Archaeomancer could possibly bring back your Familiar's Ruse and your Thwart.
Oh, nice.
I mean, just look at that soft block.
And this is one of the reasons why I have Fabricate in here. And obviously, this is a card that, if this card didn't exist, I don't think this deck would be quite as good. But the fact that Panharmonicon is one of the best cards that have ever been printed, or certainly the most interesting. When this came, I think this came out before. So as soon as I saw Unesh, I was like, yep, gonna get that Panharmonicon when I think it was like $3. It's just bonkers. Like, it does everything the deck wants to. I mean, what else? We've talked about Panharmonicon now, 3, maybe 4 times, but I think to your point, like, it's that good. Like, the decks that want this card, the decks that play there's no deck where it's like, oh yeah, I have a spare Panharmonicon lying around, I'm just gonna throw it in and see what happens. It's like, no, this deck just skyrockets every deck that it gets put into.
Yeah, it's weird. I've actually never thought about putting Panharmonicon on my Carador deck. Because, I mean, literally every creature in the deck has an ETB effect.
That's right.
I don't know why I don't
What
do that.
What are you doing? And you can even go get the foil masterpiece version that you can't read. Oh, wait, no, these ones you can read.
These are actually the good ones. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the Yeast package. Now we're going to head over to Spice, and I'm going to kick this off. We only had 4.
Okay.
And once again, I picked something that deals with your opening hand.
Okay, good. All right, you didn't pick the one that I thought you were going to.
I know which one you thought I was going to pick.
All right, good.
Psych.
Psych.
So
I think I know what you know that you think that I think that you know.
You think that I know that I think you know this.
So we're talking about Chancellor of the Spires.
Yes, sir.
Whew, he's expensive. Yeah. But here's the deal. 4 colorless, blue. You may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, at the beginning of the first upkeep, each opponent puts the top 7 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It has flying. It's a 5/7. But then, even more absurd, when Chancellor of the Spires enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. I mean, it's slightly like a worse version of... of course, I'm going to draw a blank on it now. The blue Primordial.
So, Diluvian.
Yes. It's like a worse Diluvian to an extent. Yeah. But I just love the whole, hey, everyone's going to go ahead in the beginning. Have you thought about maybe just swapping this for Diluvian? Because they kind of look like they accomplished the same thing.
I think I had Diluvian in and then realized, and I checked again today, I only have like 20-ish Sphinxes. So I was like, okay, this is something that's going to help the Sphinx package, right?
Oh, I didn't even realize it was a Sphinx.
Yeah, yeah. No. I was in the same boat, right? Because I was like Diluvian Primordial, but then like I played it and I always forget, and this always happens to me, that the Primordials are just your opponents. They're not your own. So I was like, oh, slam dunk, Diluvian Primordial. I'll just go get something from my graveyard that I milled with Factor Fiction. And then I played it, and then I read it, and I was like, I guess I'll get Murder, Rampant Growth, and Blazing Volley. Like, suck it. So this card... I tried this in my mill deck. I don't think it did what that deck wanted to do. But again, the fact that it's a Sphinx and costs an arm and a leg, I mean, what more do you want?
And it is an ETB effect.
Very true, yes.
And we're going to talk about some ways to abuse that in the capping.
Very excited.
It's definitely going to stay in my build.
Love it.
What is your spice? Did you go with the one that you thought that I was going to go with?
I didn't. So I thought you were going to go with the...
Artemis All-Seeing?
No, because that's what I went with.
I figured that's what you thought.
No, I thought you were gonna go with the Sphinx Ambassador. I thought you couldn't be pulled away by the rarity and the price. And I was like, okay, that's a Mr. Combo lure if I've ever seen one.
No, sorry. The card you picked is an absolute Mr. Combo winner.
It's great. First off, before I even read the card, let me go on record that before everyone, our 4 listeners, aka my parents, tell me otherwise. Yes, I know this is never gonna happen, but you gotta let a boy dream. Artemis Ulcine, legendary creature, Sphinx, 3 colorless, 3 blue. It's a rare. 4/5 flyer, 2 colorless and tap it, draw 2 cards and discard a card. I have graveyard stuff, I'm drawing cards, whatever. All right, here we go. Whenever Artemis All-Seeing deals damage to an opponent, you may reveal your hand. If cards with at least 6 different converted mana costs are revealed this way, that player loses the game. Now, will that ever happen? No. But, to be fair,
it could.
I was looking at this earlier because I mostly just threw this in there because I think the card's hilarious and it's a Sphinx. Exactly. So I was like, okay, but then I went and looked and it's like, I actually have like a not horrible range, right? I have 8 1-drops, 11 2-drops, 11 3-drops, 14 4-drops, 7 5-drops, 6 6-drops, 7 7-drops, and 1 11-drop. So is it ever going to happen? Absolutely not. But is there the smallest fraction of a chance that it could? Maybe.
I mean, I think it would be kind of, I mean, granted, it would completely bust your curve, but if you could find some 8, 9, and 10s to put in, then you got the gamut. Then you're good. You're golden.
Fast forward to 50 minutes ago, where you're like, this deck's curve's way off the charts. And you're like, no, you got to put in bigger stuff. No, it's like I said, mostly it's a Sphinx card that does something on top of being a Sphinx, right? So like, this is one of the ones where if you play it, it's kind of the card where it's like, this just buys you time, right? It's a blocker, and then at the end of the turn, if you have mana left over, you can go try to get more ramp, whatever the case may be. I also like the fact with its ability, it's discard any card, not just one of the 2 that you drew. So if your hands are full, all that stuff. So no, it's hysterical. It's a Sphinx. As soon as this got spoiled, I was like, I'm gonna wait till the price goes down. Because it was $4 for no reason.
Well, I think that actually maybe had some chance in standard.
Oh yeah.
Or
because just heads up, just ramp out and then blast them.
Yeah.
Again, as they mentioned previously, I did see this actually played as a commander on the adult commander videos on Star City Games, and it did not work. So go figure that one out.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up the spice package, guys. Now we're going to go over to the bottle capping, and a reminder, these are going to be BigTuck's, our guests, and myself's recommendations that we're going to cut from the deck and add that are going to be under $5, under $50, and a personal recommendation.
You also know it's time to trim your beard when you can't tell if the hair on your beer can is yours or your cat's.
Isn't your cat black and your beard brown?
Not like the individual ones. Know your place, Squee!
All right, BigTuck, this is your deck. What are you cutting, and what are you going to add for under $5?
So this one was actually tricky because I was like, I had ironclad ideas of where this was going to go, and then I double-checked the price, and it was all over the place, and it was very upsetting. So you're going to say that you're not going to like this cut because of the change in the CMC, but I'm handling that at a later point. So table that. So I'm actually going to cut Deep Analysis.
Wow. All right.
So, Deep Analysis is a very good card. It is 3 colorless and a blue for target player draws 2 cards, which is fine. And then it has a flashback of a colorless and blue, pay 3 life, and then draw 2 cards that way. So I think that I have, because I already have like Ponder, Divination, I have a bunch of 1-drop draw spells in here. And if I'm getting this in the graveyard, generally I'm getting my train going more efficiently than what this card is going to give me. So, as made mention earlier, I do not think I have enough Sphinxes in here, and there was one that I'm glad I waited to buy that got printed on, of all things, the Game Night box. And this one is a mythic. It comes in at a screaming hot $1.86. We're talking Inspired Sphinx. So 5 colorless, blue, creature Sphinx, 5/5 flyer. When Inspired Sphinx enters the battlefield, draw cards equal to the number of opponents you have. Then for 3 colorless and a blue, create a 1/1 Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So I'm still drawing cards, granted at a much more expensive rate. But this puts my Sphinx count to 20. And on the off chance where I'm not doing much, this is a good outlet. Like you made mention earlier, where there's times, and again, this is one of the reasons why I don't like playing these kind of blue decks, because it's way too much thought of like, oh, do I want to play this or do I want to hold up a counter? This one kind of does both, where if you don't have your commander out, but you have her, by the looks of it, you do have something to put your mana into that can be a blocker, kind of buy you a little bit more time. So I think it's a good inclusion. It is expensive, but I'm going to lower that. I'm going to flatten the curve a little bit later.
All right. Well, so I think it's funny, and the reason I laughed, and I'm fine with the ad. You know, Fact or Fiction I actually thought about cutting, but I thought you would fight
Deep
me
Analysis?
on it because or Deep Analysis. I thought you'd fight me on it because of the whole that you'd probably pitch it.
Yeah.
And then be able to get it back for 2. But, you know, and that's fine. And I get that you want an Inspired Sphinx. And you have said that sometimes you do have piles of mana. Yep. And at least now you can kind of create some
I thought you were going to say that you're going to cut Deep Analysis for the original Fact or Fiction. And I was like, okay, I'm on board.
No, what I was laughing at is all of my cuts, I didn't even realize it. They're all Sphinxes.
Oh, what? You do know what the deck is trying to do, right?
I do, but I want you to go with me because I think I'm actually going to make the deck.
I'll go with you. I will attempt to go with you down this path.
All right, so the first one I'm going to cut is Sphinx of Lost Truths.
That's that one's kind of I will agree with you. That one is kind of a stinker.
So and it doesn't fit the theme that I'm going with. So Sphinx of Lost Truths, 3 colorless, blue, creature Sphinx, 3/5, and it has kicker for a colorless and a blue. You may pay additional that to cast the spell, and that's flying. When it ETBs, you draw 3 cards. But then if it wasn't kicked, discard 3 cards.
Yeah.
With the way that I'm going to go with this deck is going to be more creatures coming in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And if he comes in, you don't have an option to kick him once he's already been on the battlefield. Right. So now you're just drawing 3, discarding 3, and that doesn't feel as... I feel like he's losing his purpose, because I feel like you really want him in here to kick, to just draw 3 cards.
I completely agree with you, and this has been one that's like... There is no other Sphinx in the deck that's a real stinker if you can cast it, right? This one, you want to pay the kicker. And there's been times where I've had it in my hand, and I'm like, I'm going to wait on this, because this is not just a blocker. This is something that I'm then going to have to make a choice of. And there's only a handful of ways to recur spells from my graveyard, instant or otherwise. So I'm 100% on board with that one.
And so I want to add a card. It's a land, so we'll actually help a little bit. We'll go 35 lands. But I noticed a lot of your Sphinxes either... You know, we talked about it. The Arbiter of the Ideal has to be tapped. Well, how do you normally tap? You have to attack. Right. But you got a bunch of other ones that are based on attacking. And like you said, you only have one wide thing, an Obelisk of Erd. So I think you should put a Rogue's Passage in the deck. So Rogue's Passage is a very common card. You're going to freak out. It's only in 17% of EDH decks.
What? Wow! Wait, what? Are you serious? Oh my god! Wait, this can be run in every deck.
It's in basically 60,000 out of the 346,000 decks.
33 cents, people! Pick them up!
So it taps for a colorless, guys, and you can pay 4 into it. Tap, target creature can't be blocked this turn. I think this does so much for your deck, because I feel like, especially in our play group, we are getting more flyers. And so being able to say, you know what, I really need to just kind of scrolling through here. Boop, boop,
Well,
boop,
and even
boop.
to your point, like, okay. Even to your point, to make it easier for you, like, Arbiter the Ideal, I want to swing in with him, right, to tap him, but,
Yeah.
like, someone's got some big dragon, right, and someone else has got a Thought.
Sure.
You're like, well, I want to at least get in some sort of damage with him.
Or even the Conundrum Sphinx.
Yeah.
2 colorless, blue. Whenever it attacks, each player chooses a card name, reveals the top card of their library, and if the card is the name, they put it into their hand. If not, it goes to the bottom of their library, which usually is just a, hey, it's going to the bottom of your library. So I think you got a lot of stuff in here to do that. Plus, if it comes to the late game, and maybe your lab man has been milled away, you can't get it back, and it's like, God, I need to beat face now, or as our CCO brethren say, some wholesale ass.
Sir.
Rogue's Passage, I think, will definitely get there for you. Plus, your commander's not tiny at a 4/4, and you know what? If you had Obelisk out in that's 6. That's a 4-turn block.
That gets you there.
So, yeah,
I agree. No, I'm on board 100%.
You probably have one laying around.
I don't know if I do, but I will when I get my. I will come June when I get my Commander 2020 precons in.
All right. Well, what's your under 50 cut?
So this was going to be my under 5 cut until I looked it up today, and I guarantee. So this is going to be. You're going to love this one. I guarantee it. I'm calling it right now. You're going to be a big fan of this one. So I'm actually going to cut Time Reversal. So Time Reversal, I think, is a cool card. It's also a mythic. 3 colors, blue. Each player shuffles his hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draw 7 cards, exile it. Right. So
I did think that was kind of a weird card.
It is, and the reason why I have it in there is that if I do lose out on Labman or Obelisk or Panharmonicon, this is like one of the ways that I can kind of get it back.
Sure.
And it's okay. I think it's a perfectly fine card, but it's been outclassed by one that I think we just talked about like 2 weeks ago, Echo of Aeons. Yeah, boy, I thought you liked that. Or Eons, I'm sorry. Yeah, so Echo of Eons. This is another mythic that came out of Mr. Combo's favorite set of all time, Modern Horizons. When we talked about it on the Snaky Snake episode, I believe it was no more than $6. It is now closer to $15, which is a real shame. So
also, because if you look on the top commanders, it's in 57% of the Xeris decks. Technically, that commander just came out.
Makes sense.
So
it's each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards, and then it also has flashback for 2 colors and a blue. So again, like, in my opinion, this does exactly what Time Reversal is supposed to do. It doesn't exile itself, and if you hit it off of Unesh, it doesn't matter because you can actually cost it for less, right? So in reality, this is something. So I know it's 6, which is kind of on the higher end, but more times than not, this is going to be something that I'm going to intentionally not take and have go to the bin off those Fact and Fictions, and then be able to flash it back to get those pieces back. It's kind of rare that I do. There has been one time where I played this deck where I was just like, I got nothing. Like, I'm out of cards in hand. I burned all my counter spells. I got piles of mana and nothing to do. And I was just praying for that. And actually, no, I think I mystical tutored to go get that other card, just to be able to shuffle it up and go. So the fact that this is modality, the fact it doesn't exile itself when you cast it, just a strict upgrade in my opinion.
No, that's fair. It's a great card.
It really is.
It especially for the 3 mana out of the graveyard. That's so good.
Yeah, and like
I would almost say that's now that the price has gotten higher, less people will be able to get it. But it does seem like a card to where if you're in a deck that's like, I have the risk of decking myself.
Yes.
And my win con's very frail with the Labman stuff. You should put one in just in case.
Well, and even then, like, even to that point, the flashback cost is legitimate Time Twister, and Time Twister costs minimum $500. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's so good. I agree with you. Like, some people, the argument would be like, oh, you can run Monster Mash Eldrazi, as we call it, right? But it's like, I don't want to run an Eldrazi in this deck. I'm never going to pay 10 for it. I have no way to cheat it out. I just rather do this.
But that does give you a 10 CMC for Aedamus All-Seeing.
Okay, never mind. We're putting all the Eldrazi's in. 13, 10, 12, I don't care. That's all going in.
Support this decision.
But anyways, Echo of Eons, I agree. It's a really good card. And it's just, in my opinion, and I don't like doing these because I think they're kind of boring, just a straight upgrade from Time Reversal.
Yeah. No, that's
so.
fair.
What's your second guy?
So
another Sphinx. I know.
Yeah, I'm getting another Sphinx. And it's fine.
Sure.
It's fine. We're going to cut Sphinx of Magosi. Mm-hmm. 3 colorless, blue, creature Sphinx, 6/6, flying. And you can pay 2 colorless and a blue, draw a card, then put a +1/+1 counter on it.
So you sir, have hacked this deck because, as it turns out, there's not a ton of Sphinxes out there that are really good.
It's not good, but here's what I want to go more into. You've talked about how you almost decked yourself a lot.
Wait a minute.
You got Labman in. It's a card from Theros Beyond Death.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I'm not going to do a Planeswalker, if that's where you were going. But I'm going to go a card that is wrecking in CEDH. And you've talked about how you have a lot of blue pips. And I actually looked at the numbers. You have, in the deck, 86 blue pips.
Holy cow, really?
So, you know what would probably be good with that? A Thassa's Oracle.
Oh my gosh.
2 blue pips, creature Merfolk Wizard. It's sitting around $4. And it reads, when Thassa's Oracle ETBs, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game.
Slam dunk. Yeah,
especially with, you got your Panharmonicon, that's going to trigger twice. Potentially, when this happens, you'll be doing 20 to 40. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got that's a slam dunk. Cuts the curve in what, like a third compared to the other one. And and
I get it. It's getting more away from your Sphinxes, but my last ad is another card from Theros Beyond Death that's just going to feed more into this, to where we'll make up the 3 Sphinxes that I cut and make this thing, I think, run like a fine-tuned machine.
I do agree. So that's like the tricky part, right? Where there's times where I'll have 2 Sphinxes in hand, low cost ones, and hit them and whiff on the other ones, right? And you're kind of stalled. Yep. So I do like this idea of having these other things that can do these sort of effects, like you made mention of. Thassa's Oracle is really, really good in the deck. So that'll be going on the list for sure.
Well, what is your big boy ad? Personal recommendation.
So this was supposed to be my under 5, but then it turns out it's like $6. So I'm actually going to cut Temporal Mastery. So 5 colorless and 7. Take an extra turn after this one, exile it. Miracle for a colorless and a blue. I think the point that you've made before is that I do not have that much top deck manipulation in this. And at that, this is just a worse time warp, right? There are times like we didn't talk about it, but like one of the best cards in this deck is Temporal Trespass, because it's 8 colorless. It's the 11 drop, 8 colorless, triple blue, delve, and take an extra turn after this one, then exile it. So usually the way it works is if I'm at a good enough board state and I'm starting to thin out my library, I just tutor, go get Temporal Trespass, cast it, take my next turn, go to town from there. Temporal Mastery, there's been times where I've gotten it and it's like, okay, great. It's a 9-drop Explorer. I draw a card and play a land. You know what I mean? But like you made mention earlier, the Labman is very, very fragile. So I'm going to put in the new Labman that we've talked about more than once, and you know him, you love him. Really, this card cost me 0 because I have it in a deck that doesn't need to be in it. Jace Welder of Mysteries. So
is that in your regular Friends deck?
It's actually in my Nekuzar deck, and I just can't. The big problem with that. So here's a big problem with that in a 3-color deck. Colorless triple blue, right? Like, it's kind of hard to do when you don't have a gazillion fetch lands and whatnot. So, and I also don't deck myself that often in that deck. It's more of the other people, but that's neither here nor there. Legendary Planeswalker Jace comes in with 4 loyalty. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Pretty much the best way to use it. +2, target player puts the top 2 cards of the library into the graveyard, draw a card. -8, draw 7 cards. Then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. So effectively, this is just another way to fill up my graveyard. Hope maybe hit like an Aeons if I'm really lucky, which will never happen. But moreover, it's just like, this is just second Labman. So the games that I've won the most efficiently in this deck is being able just to hit those mills, just to keep hitting them over and over and over again. And like, doing 3 Sphinxes in a row and then fabricating up for Panharmonicon, right? Like that's kind of been the most consistent win con I've seen. So the fact that when I built this deck a million years ago, Jace wasn't even a spark in Maro's eye.
Ooh.
But now that it exists and I have a copy of it, it just seems like a pretty easy swap in for me.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with you. I think the biggest thing, and you've kind of complained about this before because you don't like Labman decks.
Sure.
The interesting thing about this deck is it's not on its surface a Labman deck. On its surface, it's really a Sphinx Factor Fiction deck that you just accidentally end up milling yourself potentially. So I think just having backup pieces in there, it's kind of like on Brews and Builds 39 where we did my Xera's Snake deck. I have a Labman in the deck. It's just a
who knows, right?
In case, who knows? Because I'm drawing so many cards. You don't want to be in a deck that's drawing a lot of cards where you're actually wanting to kill your opponents through damage or whatever, but then you just accidentally, I have no cards left. Like, that doesn't feel good.
I
and so at
agree.
least having the backup piece, you're good.
And I think this plus having Thassa's Oracle in there, that's now 3 cards in there that all kind of feed towards that, which I think cutting, I feel like, again, cutting that Sphinx that you made mention of totally makes sense because it's overcosted. Cut the CMC down. Temporal Mastery, there's a chance I'm going to hit it off a draw or Brainstorm, but it's not going to win me the game, and it's so expensive to hardcast one time, and then it's gone from the game.
And remember, it doesn't even count then if it's off a Brainstorm.
Oh, great point.
Because it has to be the first card you draw on the turn. So
so it's just like I like Temporal Mastery as a card. I think it's got a lot of really unique synergies to it, but the extra turns thing in this deck just doesn't seem to work for me.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine with it. So
what's your last one?
Let me give you another Sphinx to cut.
Sure.
So we're gonna cut, and it's the only top deck look thing you have in the deck, but your deck doesn't care about that.
I know which one you're talking about already.
Sphinx of Jor Isle. 4 colorless blue Sphinx. It's a 5/5. It's a flyer. It has Shroud. You may look at the top card of your library, and you may do this at any time.
Again,
why do you?
It's a Sphinx. To be fair, it is a Sphinx that has an ability. There's actually, you'll get kicked out of this because we've talked about it so much. I cut this for the Sphinx that we talked about that lets you have the pregame effect. There is a Sphinx that used to be a bomb that's just Sarah Angel on a Sphinx. It's 3 colors blue for a 4/4 flying vigilance, and up to recently that was one of the premier Sphinxes in the deck because it was because it's 3 and go. But again, it's a Sphinx. It's kind of a beater. That's kind of it.
That's kind of it. So we're going to cut it more because I'm all in on getting your Factor Fiction stuff over and over and over again. So we're going to do a Thassa Deep Dwelling.
Ooh.
3 colorless blue, legendary enchantment creature god. It's indestructible.
Yeah.
It's going to have devotion. We won't get into that.
Without the second turn, the turn this comes in, it will have devotion guaranteed.
And so you still have a 6/5 beater, so you didn't lose that. We lowered the curve. But here's the big thing. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control.
Yeah.
We just talked about Thassa Deep Dwelling. We talked about all the other ETB stuff. We talked about your Sphinxes with the Factor Fictions. Now you're getting this multiple times. And that's a big reason why I actually cut the Sphinx of Lost Truths, because if you just blink that, you're just drawing 3, discarding 3, and that just doesn't do anything for you. But it even has a mana sink to where if you need to, 3 colorless blue, tap another target creature. Well, maybe you did cast a creature, and now Kefnit's Monument now makes it to where that doesn't untap. It gives you a lot of modality. But then, just on its surface, blinking for Factor Fiction or Thassa's Oracle for the win. Yeah. Real good. I
completely agree. And even to your point, this also helps, if I only have 1 or 2 Sphinxes out and I want to get into the red zone with Rogue's Passage, then this just turns that 1 Sphinx back into a blocker that's hard to get around, right? These Sphinxes on blocks will eat zombies, they'll eat drakes, they'll eat thopters, anything on the go. So, no, I like... Thassa Deep Dwelling, I think, is honestly one of the best cards that was printed in Theros, and I need to get several of them. So no, I like it. And to your point, the fact that we're cutting out I think this makes a lot of sense too, where it's like we're cutting out a Sphinx, but in reality, all I really care about the Sphinx is the enter the battlefield effect, right? That's why we have like the ones of Jar Isle and the Magosi, just because they happen to be Sphinxes that can come down and go, right?
Sure.
So,
and if you realize, I cut the ones that didn't have great enter the battlefield effects. So it's like you lost a kind of, let's just be honest, vanilla Sphinx.
Totally.
And now you blink the ones that truly matter.
Yes, I completely agree with it. So no, I'm all on board with that. I like all the cuts there. It's gonna be tough though. I think if we combine our cuts, because we all hit 3 different cards, right? If we combine the cuts, the CMC is gonna be reduced drastically, like probably to like 3.6 or something insane like that, right? And for, let's call it $50 tops, we have a deck that the CMC is lower. The bones are still there. The win cons are still there. You just get to it more efficiently.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, if you look at it, Thassa's Oracle, Thassa Deep Dwelling, and Rogue's Passage combined $16.
Yeah, sure.
You already have a Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Yeah. Echo of Eon, sure. That's like $12.
I'm guessing that will go down at some point, maybe.
Sure.
Do you have a Smith
But
one?
even then... maybe. But even then, okay, we add that in. You're at $28. Inspired Sphinx.
It's a buck.
You're at $30.
Yeah.
$30.
Yeah, and
so for $30, I actually think you make this deck leaps and bounds
way better. I agree, and like again, it's been hard because we've talked about this before of like. When you build these decks, I really want to be like my Sphinx deck, right? So I've like continued to like push off of the Sphinxes, push off of cutting them in general. But I agree. Like I think the ones that you have are kind of stinkers. And again, like I said previously, none of those three. Like here's a great point. Like if you let's compare Sphinx to Magosi, which costs 6, and Sphinx to the Final Word that costs 7. So for 1 mana more, you're warping the game all like a complete 180. So no, I'm on board with it. And again, like it all feeds to the win con. So 3 cuts coming to you level 1, coming in soon. Now here's a real question, a little bonus. If we were gonna cut a card for the Nyx Bloom Lotus or whatever, the Devotion one, what were you thinking on that?
So here, let me sort your deck by its normal type, and not this nonsense that the Brews and Builds.
Yeah, those idiots.
All right, let's see.
I got it. Cut Thran Dynamo, easy.
Oh yeah,
right
there you go. Let me see. I don't know, I could pick another Sphinx. Just kidding. No, I mean, I would either say Thran Dynamo or Sad Robot.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, either one does what you need. Yeah, I'd say either one. Because, I'm trying to think.
But here's the thing with the Thran Dynamo, again, that I don't like. It's colorless mana, which, again, at some point we don't need, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, either. Oh no, because that'll count. I was about to say possibly the because I was looking more in the creatures, see if there's any big stuff that's just like worthless.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Metallic Mimic, but that doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
I'd say Thran Dynamo's fine. That'd be a good one to probably. Yeah, I can't see anything else that would even be worth considering. Get rid of Cage Sun, garbage card.
Also, last thing here, Sapphire Medallion, we didn't talk about it, $16. It's absurd.
Oof. Well, you know what, with that, we're going to Sphinx on over to the outro. You know what? Thanks for making it until the end. And as promised, here's some details about our giveaway from our sponsor, Level 1 Game Shop. We're going to be giving away a Mystery Commander 20 deck with a playmat and sleeves. To enter, it's extremely simple. Just help promote the content we already are producing. You're going to get an entry for every interaction you do with us on social media, subscribing to us on YouTube, all the good stuff. And yes, we're going to announce that winner on MTG Action 4 News June 2nd and social media soon after. And these will be happening every month. Just get used to it. Get used to the free things we're
just
giving.
Embrace it. Just suck it on in.
It could be a sweet pre-con like this. It could be a really sweet card. It could even be a starter deck. It really just depends what our sponsor, Level 1 Gaming, provides. But you know what? It'd be extremely helpful if you guys left us some positive feedback on whatever platform you're listening or watching us on. If you enjoyed it, do it and leave that 5-star review because that actually helps other people join the collective as well. If you'd like to reach out to us and know more ways you can enter into the contest, here's how you can do that. You could reach me at Mr. Combo number 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. BigTuck, where can they reach you?
Well, I'm still living in the nightmare world, so I'm still on Twitter. I am at BigTuck tweeting, and yeah, that's it.
I'm waiting for the week he calls back. You can't.
Oh God!
Every day we're getting dangerously close to it.
You can reach our main account at CMDTower on Twitter as well. You can go to our website, CMDTower.com. We're also on Facebook. Basically, all you have to do is type in Conundrum Sphinx, Mind Stone.
There you go.
Disallow.
There it is.
Tower or Fort.
Yeah.
.com.
We'll give it to you.
If you want to engage our awesome audio production team for your own future projects, how would they do that, Squee?
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Rich Chaos Records. You can find me on Twitter at Dear Squee. You can email me at dearsquee@CMDTower. Or you can continue to not come to Kansas.
Fair enough. And I love how Squee's the only one that reminds everyone of the email. I just forget we have
Yeah,
email.
me too. we literally only used it, the three of us. It's like a
I
closed
was watching
loop.
a show last night and I can't remember what it was, but it was railing on like, what the hell is email? It's like a slow version of Messenger.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, emails are the
God,
worst.
that's
Don't
fair.
even get me started.
Well, if you want to engage Squee for your own, projects, you can definitely do that. He can help with music. He can help with your own podcast or audio files. And then, once the quarantine slows down or whatever that is, you can actually come to Kansas City and go to the studio. If you want to support the show as well as pick up our sponsor with the orders you're already doing, just head over to level1gameshop.com. When you place an order in the order notes, just type in CMD Tower so that you came from the collective. Outside of their own storefront, they also have a TCG store with over 99% accuracy rating and incredibly competitive prices. They also have a sweet CMD Tower playmat and sleeves, if we do say so ourselves, as well as everything else you need from an MTG and other game experience. Another way you can financially support us is head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have several different reward tiers, from as simple as Discord access to getting early access to Brews and Builds YouTube episodes, to even getting a guest spot on the episode with your own sweet, sweet brew. As well as each tier also gives you additional entries into those monthly giveaways. And of course, once again, Pink Royal, thank you for the music provided in the episode. So, Big Tuck, we're at the end. Star Magic, Unesh's Riddle. How do we feel?
Yeah, I realized I didn't explain this earlier. So Star Magic is its format. Don't even need to get into it. So that's where that came from. No, I feel good. Yeah, it's kind of like Usurper. It's a long story, but anyways, no, it's good. Like I said, this has been a deck that I liked. It's been one of the ones I really enjoy to play. It is a little clunky at times, I think, but I really like the cuts that we both came up with, and I just looked at it for $30. $35 right now, I can make this deck curve go down and be way more consistent. So no, it's a fun one. It's kind of one that I like to just grab and go with. It's not super competitive, but it is very interactive. It makes you think a little bit. Definitely an earlier. Definitely a deck you want to play.
Not in the
No,
tank.
I tried to play this drunk once, and I was like, I just concede. Like, I can't do it.
Yeah, and I even think with the cuts and ads that we talked about, it's still not a competitive deck. But I think it's going to be more consistent. Right. I think you'll be able to get it and say, I know what I want to do. I think you'll still be able to accomplish. I'm going to be factor fictioning all the time. But then, you know what? If I do deck myself, it's okay. I got piles of way to go with it. I'll at least have a way to deal with it.
And I think that's been another thing that I've enjoyed about going into these other decks that we have, of being like, well, I have this one way to do it, right? Like, I have this one way to win. And then we're like, okay, so if that's gone, now what? And you're like, we'll figure it out. So, yeah, I think
I have zero idea.
And I think, obviously, you don't want every deck to be a carbon copy of the other ones, but I think building in this redundancy, building in these ways that you can be a little bit more consistent with it, even if it is just a casual deck like this one, just makes it a little bit more fun to play.
Yeah, no. I mean, heck, if you did these changes, I would even be like, hand me that Sphinx deck, because it would just be so cool to either smash face, and then, you know what, I'm going to try to go for that weird, Oh gosh, what is his name? Adamus, all-seeing win. I think there's a lot of different things in there that you could potentially do to try to get that secret win. And then you know what? Worst case scenario, you drop down Thassa's Oracle like a CEDH player boss, and you say, "Lick my nuts." Well, that's all we got. Deuce Magoose.